Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with NETGEAR. Today's host is Jordan Cooper, and he is their Commercial Territory Account Manager for California, Texas, and Hawaii, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Jordan will answer them at the end of today's presentation. Jordan, thank you so much for being with us today. We greatly appreciate it. I am finished for now. Please go ahead and take it on over.
Wonderful. Thanks, Julie. Good morning, everybody. Like Julie said, my name is Jordan. I'm an account manager over here at NETGEAR. And today we're going to be just doing a good overview of NETGEAR. Some of you guys may be familiar with NETGEAR as a home product, as a router. That's where we're most commonly known for. And maybe you know us a little bit of our business, but maybe you don't know the extensive networking products that we do have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and kind of dip into a couple different products that we have and what NETGEAR has to offer, kind of what makes NETGEAR different and things like that. So just real quick, a little bit of about us is going to be, let me pull it up. There it is. In 2019, I haven't gotten 2020 record yet, even though we're already halfway into 2021. But just in 2019, we did a little over $1 billion in net revenue with just a little over 1,000 employees. So what I kind of take away from this slide is NETGEAR is big enough to give you some good discounts and big enough to have a name for themselves. But with a little over 1,000 employees, we're small enough to care. Right, we're small enough to make sure that for the small to medium businesses that they have a voice and that they're heard and that they're just as important as some of those big guys out there. Straight out the gate, if there's any kind of takeaway that I would have you guys take away from NETGEAR, what makes NETGEAR different compared to a lot of the competitors out there are really going to be three things. We want to be reliable, affordable, and easy to use. So when we talk about reliability, NETGEAR, we publicly post our MTBFs, our mean time between failures. We post that, it's on our website publicly for our switches and things like that, because we want everybody to know how reliable we are. And if you haven't had a chance to go and look at some of those, I would encourage you guys to do so. It's really almost quite comical in my opinion, because they're so long. A lot of our switches, it's quite common to see 100, 200, 300, even 400 years of average port failure. And so it just kind of shows that it's built to last, and it's good. It's an easy way to buy, knowing that the switch or product that you're buying is going to be just as long and is lasting just as long as your business will. We also have the limited lifetime warranty. So most of our products come with a 5-year warranty plus an additional 5 years after it goes end of life for any type of issue. So that's 10 years potentially that you could have the switch with a minimum of 5. And obviously we do some things like next business day replacement and things like that. So the next one is we want to be affordable. And this is a big one here too for us, because we cater to the SMB field, the small to medium business, and small to medium businesses, don't have the ability to oftentimes be making $1 million purchases every week or things like that. And so we really try to cater to those small to medium businesses who have a small to medium business budget. And so even if you have an enterprise level, but they have maybe a medium-sized budget, the budget's really tight, as we all pretty much are known to have happen. We're right in that field right there. And then we're easy to use. That's another thing that NETGEAR prides themselves on, and what we always strive to do. We don't want it to be where you have to take a training to understand our products, or you don't have to, go get some sort of certification or watch a bunch of videos to know how these things work, or even go online and having to read some KB articles to figure out how to troubleshoot some things. Not us here. We want to really make it user-friendly, easy on the eyes, easy to navigate. As we know, easier to use saves you time, which saves you money. So let's as we go into our products, these are some of the products that a lot of you are probably familiar with. We have our Orbeez, we have our Nighthawks. Our most common things known out there is going to be your home routers. And we do some awesome and great routers and great home products, along with there's our Nighthawk brand, and there's some of our LTE modems and hotspots and things like that. We do some great and fantastic products there, but as we dive in more into our business class, we take the same reliability. A lot of people go, yeah, I've had a NETGEAR router for years. I've had no issues with it. Just imagine what that's like having with a home, a business class product. If you can trust your home on it and you've never had any issues, it tends to kind of easier to sell when you're saying, well, your business is going to be even better. So NETGEAR, we try our best to fulfill and have all needs met of a network. Some of the things that we are really getting into heavily and are really successful in right now is a cloud management system. And we'll talk a little bit about that more in a little bit. We also have a very comprehensive switching portfolio. I mean, gosh, we just have just about every switch that could possibly be needed for any type of scenarios. And then we also do have great Wi-Fi mesh type coverages that are really strong and do some really great things with it. And this is a little bit outdated, as you can see. It says on the wireless side, it says the latest and greatest technology, 802.11ac. That's obviously we now know, and NETGEAR is heavily into the AX. So I apologize there. So that should need to be updated there to say AX, which is what we're in, and we actually have quite a bit of product already out there in the AX field. So let's say as we talk about our switching portfolio, which is kind of vast and extensive, I'm not going to just go through every single switch that we have and capability, but just know that we have really anywhere from an unmanaged switch, to your cloud managed, smart managed, and fully managed switches. And we have different switches, speeds that go in different things. We do have 10 gig switch in the unmanaged. You have fully managed switches that can do 1 gig, 10 gig, even up to 100 gig, as you see. And not many people know that, but NETGEAR does have 2 or 3 switches that do 100 gig and have 100 gig capability of it. So as we expand on technology and as technology progresses, what we like to do here at NETGEAR is we like to develop and sell it at certain points and certain times. For example, when it comes time to Wi-Fi 6, right? We came out with the Wi-Fi 6 router for a home really early on, and that's just because NETGEAR has a name for themselves as far as routers go. We like to be, we hold speed competitions and gaming competitions, and we like to be known for the fastest. But for the business side of things, we look at the timeline, we look at why people may need it right now versus later, and we try to time the market. So we came out with our Wi-Fi 6 probably about 6 months ago with the business stuff. And you might be thinking, gosh, there was some Wi-Fi 6, some other competitors out there had Wi-Fi 6 business class products before then. And that's right, and it's not that NETGEAR was delayed on doing it. It was all about timing. And we wanted to make sure that, if you're the first one coming out with the Wi-Fi 6, odds are you're going to be a little bit more expensive because it's the greatest and latest in technology. And if you're buying it right when it gets out, odds are you're going to be paying a lot for it and a higher premium than you would a little bit later on. And so, and you don't want to wait too long because then your business may not be able to grow and perform as needed. It might need to have more capability, and waiting too long can hinder business. So NETGEAR does that kind of for you and times it just right and says, when do we feel businesses are really starting to pick up and have a need for Wi-Fi 6 and some of the latest and greatest technologies that start to come out? And that's when we kind of really start to push. Another one that you'll see is a PoE++, which this is quite awesome, and I'm excited for this technology that's coming out here. For those who don't know, PoE++, I think some other competitors coined it UPoE, where you're talking about 60 and even 90 watts of power per port. And gosh, that's just crazy. It's incredible to think about. So, and here's an example of one of our PoE++ smart switches that have this cloud manageability and also have the capability of going up to 60 and 90 watts of PoE++. power. And as you can see, this the GS110 TUP is fanless, which is incredible to say that, wow, you can come out with a PoE++ switch and have it be fanless. That's incredible. And again, these always will come with our limited lifetime warranty. So some great things to kind of check out there if you're needing your high PoE devices. Some great things to look at there. So let's kind of talk briefly just about our 10 gig portfolio. We have, like I said, we have a lot of switches that do have some sort of 10 gig capability. If you're looking at a switch and with the name, if it has an X in the name, you know, like GS724TX or MS510TX UP or something like that, if it has an X in the name, it means that it has some sort of 10 gig capability. Whether those are going to be 10 gig SFP ports or 10 gig copper or a mix of both, has the ability to do 10 gig. We also have 10 gig in our unmanaged switches, in our smart managed, our cloud managed, and our fully managed. And, you know, I remember back in the day when 1 gig was, wow, who will ever need 1 gig? I mean, are you really pushing that much data? When 1 gig came out, you know, Fast-E, you know, when we were doing Cat 5, being like, wow, we're going to be doing 1 gig. And now 1 gig is such a standard. And as we see, we're pushing more and more devices are needing connectivity. There's more IoTs, TVs, you know, doing a bunch of 4K and even 8Ks kind of coming out here. It just gets a lot of need for high data usage, and so 10 gig is definitely something that NETGEAR has and has a bunch of different switches on. So regardless of budget, we have something that's going to be budget friendly. So here's our M4300. And we may talk a little bit about this later on, depending on time, but we have an M4300. These are layer 3 fully managed switches. These switches are really cool. Some of you may have seen this on a previous presentation if you joined one of them that I did. These, as you can see, these switches at the top here, as you can see, if you look right there, these are actually half-width switches. So what this means is these are still rack mountable, and you can, in essence, get two, 24 port switches to have 48 ports and have dual controllers through a single U. And so, which makes it super awesome. These come with the rack mount. If you're just going to buy one, it comes with a kit that comes with a bar that can connect to this one internet. So don't think that you have to have two to put one in a rack, but we have a few options. As you can see, we have some of these are all copper. Some of these have fiber and copper. We have some as now that have gotten updated that have all fiber. So we have definitely a plethora of these switches, and these are great. These are going to be great top of rack switches. And like it says right here, these have the capability of doing 40 gig. This is our 96X, and we might talk about it later on, but I might just mention it now. The 96X, we call our big bad boy. As you can see, it looks a little different. That's because it's modular. These come out, and this is a fantastic switch for a company that may have a small budget right now, but is growing quite rapidly. And you need to have the capability of maybe in 6 months to put in another, 8 ports of 10 gig and put in and kind of grow without having to rip and replace out a whole new switch. This is a fantastic one. This is a 2U, and this has the capability of doing 10 gig copper. Obviously, it's backwards compatible with 1 gig. It can do 10 gig fiber. It can do 10 gig copper with PoE. So if you have a demand for such a switch that can have 10 gig and PoE on that 10 gig, this has the capability to do so. And then it also has the capability of having 40 gig ports. Ports right here, obviously, there aren't any 40 gig ports on this, but this does have a modular bay that comes with 2 on a single bay, 2 40 gig ports. So again, super scalable, super awesome to put in a business that's growing quite rapidly and you don't want to rip and replace. So let's talk about our Insight Pro. I've had the opportunity to do a webinar on just the Insight Pro. So if you've missed that, here's a good chance to come back. And if you have seen it and perhaps you liked it and maybe you kind of forgot a little bit about it, this will be a good refresher. And hopefully those who are using it, maybe you'll learn something new and maybe, you'll see some more benefits that come out of this. But so Insight, let's talk about what Insight is. Insight is a cloud management similar to going to be to, your Cisco's Merakis, your Ubiquitys with your Unify, things like that. The best way that I like to kind of phrase it is Insight has been around for about 4 years now. And 4 years ago, when we were looking at getting away from the physical controllers, the physical wireless controllers, we started noticing who cloud was starting to pick up and gain popularity. And of course, the first one to kind of do it, and we first kind of found out, was Meraki. And then when Cisco had bought out Meraki, we looked at them and we said, wow, gosh, they're doing awesome and amazing things. But we looked at their price tag, and obviously, as everybody knows here, it just comes at a higher price tag. And so we said, well, we focus on the small to medium business, and not everybody can afford, not all the small to medium businesses can afford the Cisco Meraki products. And so what generally happens to those small to medium businesses who say, well, I can't afford that. What's the cheapest thing that I can find out there? And that leads them to Ubiquiti. And Ubiquiti is cheap for a reason. There's some pros that come with them and there's some cons that come with them. I won't dive into necessarily that. I'm not going to do some bashing here, but everybody kind of knows the positives that come with Ubiquiti and the negatives that come with Ubiquiti. Cheap for a reason. And so NETGEAR kind of looked and said, gosh, if you're an MSP or you're the IT guy for your company, or maybe you're the owner of the company and you have small business and you're kind of juggling multiple hats and you want to have some sort of remote manageability to make your life a little bit easier, you're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. You're either kind of having to pay a premium at a much higher cost for a great product, or you're going to be paying the cost that you'd like to pay, but maybe for not the best product out there, the one that you feel most confident in. And so NETGEAR kind of said, let's make that our niche in the market. Let's kind of take the best of both worlds. Let's take the goods and the bads. Let's integrate the goods and take out the bads, and let's put it into ours. And so that's kind of how NETGEAR's Insight came to be. So it's been around for the last 4 years. During that 4-year process, and even still to this day, we are constantly getting feedback from our partners and from people who have bought this and have used the cloud and got some feedback of, what did you like about it? What did it work? What worked really well? What frustrated you? What didn't work so well? And it's gone through that refining fire of changing and updating, and it's gone through quite a few of updates. And I can honestly say at this point in time, if you haven't dabbled in Insight and you are wanting to do some sort of remote manageability, or maybe you currently have a remote management solution and maybe you're looking to make a switch, definitely check out NETGEAR's Insight. We have tons of videos online that show how to operate it. We have reports that talk about it and comparing NETGEAR's Insight, and I think we'll talk about that too here in just a minute. But definitely give it a shot, and I think you'll be very impressed with the capability of it. It has a great warranty. These come with a 5-year warranty, which is better than most out there. And one of the best things that I like to say is it's completely optional. The remote manageability is not something that you have to pay for in order for it to work. If you buy the license or you buy the license and have the remote manageability 1 year, and then the next year it comes for renewal, and you're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I just don't need to buy it. It'll still work totally 100% just fine. It's just anytime you want to manage it, you just manage it locally through the local web GUI. And that was one big thing that was a big takeaway from a lot of our bars, was they wish they had that option to have that manageability. It reminds me of a story of one of my partners. They had bought a bunch of Cisco switches and access points, and they put them in, and they had one leftover switch for kind of a failover, and one of the IT guys just stuck it in some closet and kind of set it and kind of forget about it. It wasn't turned on. It wasn't doing anything. Well, after the warranty comes up for renew, they renew everything. But lo and behold, after 3 years, when you don't have a switch that hasn't been used and sitting collecting dust in a closet, you kind of tend to forget that you have that one. And so they didn't renew the license on that one. And then after a couple of days, all of a sudden, the whole network just went down. And they called and they said, what's going on here? And they said, well, you didn't pay your license fee. And they said, yes, we did. They said, well, there's one that you're missing. We saw that you bought, but you never renewed for. And this kind of led them on this hunt, because after 3 or 4 years, people have come in, people have gone, tracking this down. Where's the switch at? And they finally find it in some closet, and they say, this is the switch that we had to renew the license for. It wasn't being used, hasn't been used, but we have to buy this. Otherwise, you're going to completely shut our whole network down. And that was a real big turnoff for them. That just got them really frustrated that their network was held hostage for, I think it was a couple of days while they tried to track this down and solve this issue of what happened. And so he ended up trying out NETGEAR, fell in love with it, and wants to only do NETGEAR as much as possible. So just a little story there. If that maybe hopefully that might be a little bit relatable to some of you guys out there, of the frustrations that sometimes can happen out there when you have somebody big chain. And of course, Cisco was so big when they kind of said, "Hey, we're going to leave." They just said, "Okay, see ya." And that doesn't hurt them when you're not buying millions of dollars through them. So let's kind of talk about Insight Pro. So there are two subscriptions for Insight. There is an Insight Premium and an Insight Pro. Insight Premium is if you're like the end user, you're using this for your own business. Maybe you have a couple locations. That's Insight Pro that you want to use. And that it runs fairly cheap. I want to say it's like $10, and that's going to be $10 per device per year, not per month, but per year, $10. So you have a device that has 6 access points and a switch, 7 devices. It's $70 a year to have that remote manageability. Insight Pro has just about all the features with the Insight Premium. It does come with a couple extra bells and whistles, like has multi-tenancy capability. It has being able to add and deem admin users and owner rights, so that way you don't get an owner going in and wants to see what you're doing, but maybe can look but can't touch, and so to speak. And Insight Pro is something that you'd want to, that would need to be purchased through Microcom. It's not something that you can just go through the app like you can with the premium. So if you're an MSP and you're looking at wanting to have some sort of that capability, like that multi-tenancy, the Insight Pro is definitely a way to go. So the goal with Insight Pro is to be super cost effective and which will increase your profitability, right? At just $10 a month, let's say, the Insight Pro, the cost could range depending on how many licenses you are, but let's say a base price of $25. It's probably maybe a little bit less than that, but as for a base price of that, at such a low cost, you're able to be more profitable. And then by increasing your revenue, by doing this monthly recurring revenue, this MRM, if you will, this is a lot of ways that people are switching to the cloud for this specific purpose. It's saving you cost because you're not having to do a truck rollout. You're not having to go and pay somebody going out there and just doing a simple job of maybe a rebooting or a simple troubleshoot. And by doing those things, you're actually reducing your cost, right? You're not having to pay somebody a bunch of money per hour to be out there, nor are you having to necessarily pay a big IT person to manage, or a full-time IT person to manage your network. So you increase your profit by increasing your revenue and decreasing costs with the Insight Pro. Now, here's kind of what I was talking about some reports. I can talk all day about how awesome Insight Pro is and how great it is and how much better it is than everybody else out there. But, I would say don't take anybody's word for it. Go find out for yourself. Either test it or you can go and read some of these reports. So NETGEAR, when NETGEAR came out, we had a Totally report. This is a third-party, independent, hardware testing company that comes out there, and we paid them to say, hey, test our network, compare it to, and I believe on the Totally report we had them compared to Zyxel and Ubiquity at the time, kind of the small businesses out there. And NETGEAR came out on top. Let me do it here. Yeah. NETGEAR came out on top as far as reliability, affordability. It kind of goes through a bunch of questionnaires, and we came out as number one with comparing all the other features and the capability. But then people wanted to compare us to Cisco, and we kind of thought, well, it's kind of not a fair fight, if you will, because again, Cisco's Meraki, they focus on enterprise, so they're going to have a whole bunch of features. But we said, okay, we'll do that as well, and we'll actually use another company just in case to show there's no bias or anything like that. We really didn't pay them under the table to say we're the best. But we went and did another Microcom report, and as you can see, this one says, based upon our observations, we found that NETGEAR Insight Pro product line and cloud-based control provided the best value and very efficient ground-up multi-tenant, multi-location platform for the central management of SMB sites. So it really did a good job comparing those two. When you're looking at overall value is what I think Microcom kind of said. Obviously, Meraki has some great features that we don't. We felt, hey, the small to medium businesses may not need these enterprise level features. But for its value, biggest bang for your buck, if you will, NETGEAR came out on top. And so some of the things that I kind of found out was, I'm going to go to this kind of looks like this, right? How easy is it to create an organizational user and permission? With NETGEAR's, it's excellent, Ubiquiti's fair, and Cisco's fair. There was some things that are also excellent in categories, but this is kind of the questionnaires and the questions that it kind of goes through and asks that we asked, and they came out and said this is what they felt. So anyway, I call this good toilet material. So if you're ever, just want to kind of check them out and kind of get a good idea of maybe why should I switch from this, or maybe I'm thinking about going into this, why should I choose you over these guys? Go to our website and take a look at this. It's on our web. Both of them are published on our website. Go ahead and look through them and take a look and see for yourself and see what you think. Here's some kind of more questions. So I'm going to kind of go through some of these pages because we're kind of cutting on time here, but know that NETGEAR has the ability, when you go through Microcom, and this is one of the big benefits of going through Microcom, is we have the ability to do remote site surveys. So if you're going to be doing an install, or again, if you're an IT guy, or maybe you're an MSP, or you're doing it for your own business, if you need help kind of figuring out, hey, where should I deploy my access points? How many access points do I need? What do I need for my entire network? You may know, if you're an IT guy or you're an MSP, you may know, but maybe it's time. Maybe like, look, I just don't got the time to go through and have to do all this stuff. Send it over to your account rep or whoever at Microcom, and we can get involved and create this report. This is something that you can absolutely utilize and take a look and see. And as you can see where the colors are, NETGEAR's goal is to have everything in green. The only thing that we really need to be able to provide a remote site survey, the more information you can provide us, the accurate it can become. We need an actual blueprint. Don't be drawing things on a napkin and sending it over to us, because it's not to scale, and that does happen quite often. But send us an actual blueprint. Let us know what the walls are made out of, because we got to put it into our software and put in what the walls are made out of, and for the inside and outside. And then also let us know about how tall the ceilings are. This will give us a good idea of kind of coverage coming down, as our access points are omnidirectional. And so once we kind of have those 3 bits of information, we can really get pretty accurate. We say it's about 80% to 85% accurate. Obviously, the way to get 100% is to be on site, but this will give you a really good idea of how many access points and kind of the building materials that you may or may not need. Okay, so quickly we'll talk about here on our M4300s. I won't dive too much into this. I did a whole segment on this before as well with the SDVoE, which is software-defined video over Ethernet. If you don't know what that is, technology is just progressing where it's getting away from HDMI, and it's now using, instead of HDMI to transfer AV, it's using an Ethernet cable. In the past, there's been a lot of challenges that have come with this, as switches and has to have configurations just perfectly set in order to get that working. Well, NETGEAR did the next best thing, and we did those pre-configurations already set for you. And if you're an AV guy, this is a big deal. If you're not an AV guy, still know that it's a really big deal to have these pre-configurations set, where it is legitly a plug and play type setup, where you can just plug these in. And again, as you can see right here, it involves the IGMP protocols, IGMP snooping, query, or fast leave, and multicast flooding. These are pre-enabled, and these where you can just plug in and it just works right out of the box, which saves you a lot of time. And that's on our M4300 switches. So if you have an AV setup, or if you're in the AV industry, or if you're going to be opening up an AV business or whatever, any type of AV stuff, just think of, I know NETGEAR. Jordan did some long presentation that I had joined, talking about AV and NETGEAR, and we can get the ball rolling from there. And this is kind of where AV kind of comes into play. Many people think, well, I'm not doing that big of AV stuff, but when you kind of really think about it, when you talk about you got cameras and TVs and projectors and all these kind of different things, it really does start to add up. And as they start to add up, so does your data capability. And that's where, again, the 10 gig has a really big, strong play there. And then here's that 96 that I was kind of talking about. So we won't retouch back up on it, but here's how you can see it's modular, and you can plug in, pull it out, and put it in. And then here's our big bad boys, our M4500s. These are going to be our 100 gig switches. As you can see, we've got 2 of them, pictures of there, We have these set up in a couple of data centers. So we've got some case studies that have proven that these work at a fraction of the cost. You know, when you're talking about data center builds, you want the biggest bang for the best buck. And when you kind of compare the speeds and capabilities of some of the higher ends to NETGEAR's, we perform just as well as the others at a fraction of the cost. If you don't believe me, we have some case studies published on our website, and we can kind of get some in your hands to play out and test around. So the takeaways from this, we want to earn your business. We want to make sure we're offering the best quality and the best products. We want to make sure that you're making the money that you guys want with NETGEAR, that NETGEAR is providing the value that you need it to be providing. And at the end of the day, it's the perfect portfolio for any type of commercial stuff, things. We have some great tech support that can help out anybody, and we have great profit margins and reliability. So that is all that I have. Julie, I'm now done. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and we can go through maybe some questions.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for that wonderful presentation. And yes, I've got some questions here for you. Let's get started with the first one. Does NETGEAR offer 24/7 support for SMB devices?
So it depends. To answer that question, it kind of depends on where you buy and how you buy. So all of our devices will come with 90 days free of 24/7 tech support. If you're going to go on Amazon and buy these products and you're not going to go through these certain channels, then yes, you do have the option to buy 24/7 tech support after the 90 days. If you're a partner with NETGEAR, or if you buy through distribution or any of those channels, we do offer those to our partners as well, with the 24/7 tech support free of charge.
Thank you, Jordan. Next question here for you. Will all of your SMB devices support Wi-Fi 6?
So, I mean, that depends. I mean, obviously, like our AC, you have to have the AX card and the AX capability to be built in. Going forward, yes, all of our devices that's going to be coming out, all of our access points are going to have that capability of doing Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6 also, in order to really utilize the speeds, the ports on like our access points on our Wi-Fi 6 are multi-gig. So that means your standard Cat 5e won't handle it because it's a 2.5 gig on a single port. So that means you need a multi-gig switch that can handle 2.5 gigs in order to see the benefit. And so yes, NETGEAR is continuing to coming out with multi-gig switches that have that capability to do so. So to answer that question, going forward, yes, but backwards, like if you see some of our AC devices, obviously those can't have Wi-Fi 6 compatibility. But going forward, any of our Wi-Fi 6 devices that come out will be backwards compatible with our AC devices. So if you have, a majority of your cell phones or laptops or whatever are still in AC, but you have these AX access points installed, they'll still be able to work just fine.
Excellent. Thank you, Jordan. Next question here for you. If somebody has PoE units or PoE Plus units, will that work with the PoE Plus models?
So if I understand your question, if you have units that require PoE or PoE Plus, let's say you have an access point that needs 15 watts or 30 watts of PoE power, maybe 5. Can you plug those into a PoE Plus? If that's the question, then the answer to that would be absolutely. They can go up to 90 watts, and they can give as little as 1 watt, and they can give as much up to the 60 or 90 watts, depending on the switch. So I hope that if I understood that correctly, that answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Jordan, so much. Next question. With cloud management, is there a cost associated with that? I think you did talk about it, but can you touch on that again?
Yeah, for sure. So there is a cost associated with it. Again, it's not required, and I can't emphasize that enough, that the cost is not, you don't have to pay for the remote management in order for the device to continue working. The remote management that you pay for is just to have the ability to have the remote management. If you don't care to have the remote management, well, then don't pay for it, and you can manage it locally, and they still will work just fine. There are 2 subscriptions. There's Insight Premium and there's Insight Pro. Insight Premium is something that you go into the app, or you go to Insight, you buy the licenses, and those go directly to like NETGEAR. And you buy the licenses, you buy as many as you need for as long as you need. I think we sell them in 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year licenses. And those will generally run you about $10 per license per year, not per month, but per year. When we say per license, that's going to be so per device that has the ability to do Insight. So if you have 5 switches, but maybe 3 of them only have that cloud remote manageability, you can buy just those 3, and your cost would be $30 a year to have those manageable for those 3. There is also Insight Pro. Insight Pro is really available only to be buying through distributors or authorized resellers. So it's not something that you can go to and just buy on the app like you can with Premium, or go through NETGEAR and buy it. You have to go through somewhere like Microcom so that you want to buy the license. And of course, Microcom as a seller, since NETGEAR is not selling it directly to you, I don't know the exact cost, and but I would imagine it would be somewhere but $25, maybe even cheaper. I feel like that's a good, probably safe bet that if that you were thinking if that's the cost, $25 would probably be pretty conservative. And the best way to do so is contact Microcom and contact your account rep and say, hey, how much is these Insight Pro licenses? And Microcom can tell you exactly how much those are going to be.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Next question here for you. The 10 gigabyte switch, does it offer 10 gigs to each port?
Yeah, so with our diverse portfolio of switches, the question to that is yes. We have some switches that just have 10 gig maybe on the SFP ports. We have some that have 10 gig on just a couple of copper switches, but then we have switches that have 10 gig on each port. Like especially on our M4300s. On our M4300s, if there's an X in that name, all ports will be 10 gig, whether that's 8 ports, 16 ports, 24 ports, 48 ports, or 96 ports. All of them will be 10 gig. So we do have switches that have the capability of having all ports be 10 gig.
Great, thank you for that, Jordan. Next question here for you. Can one manage multiple locations with a single login, or would they need a multiple logins?
And that's a great question, and one that I love to answer because that's the multi-tenancy capability. And the answer is yes, absolutely. You can have one login and manage multiple locations. You can even set to have different, if you want to have a different login, let's say you have an IT department, or let's say you're an MSP, you're a managed service provider, and you manage 10 different companies, and you delegate to your IT people. You say, hey, Jim over here is going to manage these 2 locations. Sally over here is going to manage these 3 locations. However you want to divide it up, you can set access so Jim can only see his and Sally can only see hers. You have that capability of doing that as well through the logins and creating logins for each one with only one license, which is super awesome. And so it's super easy when you log in, and it's one of those things that you can see on our YouTube. If you go to just YouTube and type in NETGEAR Insight, you'll see as soon as you log in, you'll see the list of the companies that you have under this management. Let's say you have, McDonald's, and you have a Jiffy Lube, and you have a Walmart. And you say, okay, well, I've got multiple locations of each one too. You just click on the business that you want to go into, and then let's say you click on Walmart, and then boom, it'll pull up all the locations that you have set up. Maybe you have like a Fresno, and maybe you have a Sacramento, and maybe you have San Diego, wherever you're at, and you can say, okay, today I'm going to be managing this location. You click into it, and boom, you're into that network at a single level. You can see all the switches, all the device. You can see on the front page, you can see anything that you want to see at the very front of the page, you can set up. You can say, hey, maybe I want to see just device health. Maybe I want to see data usage. Maybe I want to see, all these thumbnails that you can pick and choose of what you want to see. So long answer to that, but the short answer, yes.
Great, thank you for that information. It's very helpful. Next question here for you. Are all of the M43 series, are the racks mountable, and does NETGEAR sell the racks included? I'm guessing maybe Microcom can put them together, but we're looking to see if mounts are included with each purchase.
Yep, 100%. Anytime you buy a NETGEAR product from an authorized reseller such as Microcom, the devices will come with the rack mountable and with the ears and everything that it needs. So right out of the box, you have 100% all the things that you do need. There's no nobody needs to come in and pre-assemble them, or you don't need to buy ears separately. Even on those half-width switches, it actually comes with maybe a little bit more than you need. It'll come with, because they're half width, so obviously you think, well, how can a half width fit into a full width? Well, it comes with one ears that go on one side, and then on the other side, it comes with a kind of a long bar that mounts to the other side. So it comes with that, so it can just mount just that by itself. But then it also comes with a little clip. So if you buy two of those, and you're like, well, I'm going to put these both in a single U, then you don't need that long bar. Then you use this clip to clip on one side of the switch to the other switch, and just mount the sides to the actual rack. And so it may come with even actually, some of our switches may come with more rack mounting gear than you may necessarily need.
Thank you, Jordan. Last question here for you. Is the NETGEAR Pro, is the NETGEAR Insight Pro available for SMB devices only?
Yes. So Insight Pro is only for the cloud, anything that has the cloud manageability. So if it can be premium, it can be pro. And yes, it's only for our business class products. You can't go in and put like a Nighthawk and have the manageability. They did just recently, not too long ago, they set up where Orbi, on the Orbi Pro, again, that's more for the business, has the ability to be managed remotely via Insight or through the app that Orbi has. You can choose either one. But those are the only ones. It still has to be a business class product and has the capability of being managed via Insight to be able to manage it. So, and for example, let me rephrase to this. If you have one of our older access points that doesn't have the cloud manageability on it, you have to buy a new product that has the cloud ability on it. You can't just upgrade it or download some software and have the ability to have the remote manageability. So you actually have to have the device. So it's not compatible with old SMB devices and even non-SMB. So it has to be a business class product, and it has to be recent. When I say recent, I mean within the last 4 years, as long as it has a cloud capability of doing so. And know that NETGEAR, if you do have an older product, NETGEAR is constantly releasing those products with a newer version with the Insight capable. And the goal is for NETGEAR is to have all of our products eventually be on the business side of products, be capable of having remote manageability, because it's an option, not a requirement. And we see it as a possible win-win. If you need it, you have it. If you don't, then it's there if you ever do.
Jordan, thank you so much for answering all of those questions for us today. And also thank you to everyone for attending our webinar. If you have any further questions, of course, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. And remember, this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again. Thank you, Jordan, for your time and all of your information today. We greatly appreciate it. Everybody have a fantastic day.
Thank you.